Hi, I'm Tom Biebighauser, owner of Wetland Restoration and Training. Today we are going to mark the outside perimeter of a wetland that we want to build. And we're going to mark the outside perimeter using wire flags that we stick in the ground. But we have no idea how large this wetland's going to be. So we need to use a laser and we need to take elevations, and we're going to mark an area on the ground that changes no more than 2 feet from upper to lower edge. So stay with us and you'll see how it's possible to mark something and get it ready for construction. When you're on high ground looking down over the area where you want to build a wetland, try to pick out the center of the wetland you might want to build. So we're on high ground now and we're going to be looking down at the center of the possible wetland, and we're going to mark that center using 2 wire flags that we stick in the ground. These are not going to be exact, they're going to be approximate, but they give us a starting point for marking the perimeter of this wetland. This looks like the center of a basin. I can see that it's going uphill this way, and downhill this way. And there's some ridges, but this appears to be the lowest place, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it. Here's where we mark the center of the wetland we like to build. We're going to use a laser level to help us mark the size of the wetland that we can build. And what I've done is that I've set up this laser on a tripod on higher ground overlooking the area where we like to build the wetland. And the base of the tripod is about 3 feet higher than the middle of the basin where we want to build the wetland. When you're designing a wetland in tall and dense vegetation, the laser beam can be obstructed. So you may want to elevate the laser level by placing it on top of a stepladder or by using a tripod that has a center support that you can extend. So the laser is going right now. I'm going to turn on the receiver, and the rod I'm using is a reverse scale grade rod, and this allows me to raise the rod up high, well beyond my reach. I recommend walking towards the center of the wetland that you like to build and taking the first elevation reading in the center and use that as a starting point. So here I am at the center where we place the 2 wire flags. I'm going to take a reading here. I stand directly behind the grade rod and I hold the rod vertical and I listen for the tone. It's beeping slow because I'm low. I'm raising the rod. I'm getting the flat line tone. That means that the receiver is right in line with the transmitter. And I'm reading an 8 foot 0 inches. What I'd like you to do is to treat the layout of this wetland like you're cutting a large pie in quarters. What we're going to do is we're going to walk to one edge, the upper edge of the pie, and take a reading. And then we're going to walk to the lower edge, and then we'll go left and right from the center. So just keep on thinking about slicing that pie and taking elevation readings on the coordinates. So now I'm going to walk uphill and see where do I go uphill 1 foot from the center. I read an 8 foot 0 inches here in the center. I want to read a 7 foot 0 inches on the upper edge. I've walked uphill. I think I'm about a foot higher than the center. Let's check by taking an elevation reading. I'm hearing the solid tone, and it's a 7 foot 0 inch reading. That means I am 1 foot higher than the center. I'm going to place 1 flag in the ground at this point. Now I'm going to walk downhill through the center and find a place that is 1 foot lower than the center. I've walked downhill past the center flags, and now I'm sighting and I can see I'm in a straight line from the upper flag to the 2 center flags. Let's take a reading, see what it is. I'm at a 9 foot 0 inches. So that means I am 1 foot lower than the center, and 2 feet lower in elevation from the upper flag. So it's time to put 1 wire flag in the ground here. Now I'm going to go to this side and cut the pie in half again. I've moved over to the side of the polygon that we're laying out here, and we're going to take an elevation reading here and see if we are within 1 foot change in elevation from the center. I'm reading a 7 foot 1 inch. That means I can go uphill 1 inch. This is a 7 foot 0 inch reading. That means I am 1 foot higher than the reading that I took in the center. So this is a good place to place a flag. Now that I've taken the elevation reading on this side, I'm going to go over to the other side and see what our numbers are. I'm on the other side of our polygon that we're designing, and what I found is that there's a ridge at this location, and this ridge is the historic rim of a wetland that was drained. So this is a good place to mark and take an elevation reading. Looking behind me, I'm not that far away from the fence, and it's going downhill towards the moved stream. If I get any closer to the fence, heavy equipment won't have the room to work. So this looks like a logical place to set this boundary flag in the ground. Let's find out what the elevation reading is. I'm reading an 8 foot 6 inches. 8 foot 6 inches, that means that this is 6 inches lower than the center. So it's within a foot. It's a good place to mark. If you were to draw a straight line in between 2 opposite flags, any 2 opposite flags in the polygon that we're marking, you would find that there's no more than a 2 foot change in elevation. So those are our sideboards. Now we're going to add flags in between and give this wetland a pleasing shape. I'm walking in between these 2 flags. I'm getting to the halfway mark. I'm not going to go between them in a straight line. I want an arc. So I'm going to back up a little bit here and give it a good shape and an arc and put in a single flag. I can now walk in between these 2 flags, stand where it looks like there's an arc, and add another flag, return over here, stand in between these 2 flags, and place another one on the ground. And now we have 1/4 of the perimeter marked. So now I go over here, walk halfway in between the side flag and the lower flag. I don't want a straight line, so I'm going to back up, give it a nice arc, and place a single flag. Go halfway between these 2 flags. Get myself in position to make an arc. Always avoid straight lines when you're marking a wetland. I have never seen a natural wetland that has straight edges and a rectangle shape. And we should never build one that looks like that. I'm going halfway between these 2 flags, the lower one and the side one. I'm going to come out and make an arc. Just keep repeating this process. Now when marking the perimeter of a wetland, don't get too fancy with bays and peninsulas at this stage. This is like the foundation for a wetland. We can add bays and peninsulas and islands and mounds after we've changed the soil so that we'll hold water and develop a wetland. Going halfway in between these 2 flags, Backing up to give it an arc, returning, and I just keep adding flags. I feel it's critical that you mark the perimeter of a wetland on the ground. If you don't mark it, how in the world will anyone be able to tell what you want to build? They can't look inside your mind. The wire flags work well in an open field. When you're working in a forested area, an area with a lot of shrubs, then what I recommend doing is using plastic flagging. It comes in rolls. And tie that to the trees and to the shrubs. All right, the last quarter of this perimeter, I go halfway between the flags, come out with an arc, return and add a few more flags. Oh, it's looking good. Now I step back and look at the shape of the wetland that I've marked on the ground. And this is the time to adjust some more of these flags. I'm going to move a few of these just a little bit. I'm watching for any straight lines. Looks good, looks really good. I didn't know how large we could make this wetland until I took the elevation readings and made sure that we didn't have more than a 2-foot change in elevation. So now when you look across the perimeter here, across the polygon, there's no more than a 2-foot change in elevation from upper to lower edge or from side to side. I recommend mapping the wetland that you're designing. This will really come in handy when you need to show it to a contractor for construction or the landowner for approval to build the wetland, or even to agencies where you're applying for permits. Don't trust those flags to stay in the ground very long. If you're in farming areas, horses will take them out, goats will take them out, the wind, you never know what's going to happen. I like to use a program called Fields Area Measure. It's easy to use and it really has a good filing system. You can use Avenza maps, or if you have a GPS unit, use that. But what I do is that I have this external GPS unit and it connects by Bluetooth to my smartphone and it replaces the GPS in my smartphone, so it's much more accurate. I've started the program, Fields Area Measure, and I'm going to start walking around the perimeter to map this. While you're mapping the perimeter, it's a good time to look for any signs of drainage, shallow ditches, any vertical holes in the ground that could indicate that there's buried drain tile, any signs of filling, rough surfaces, puddles of water, all these things that show that this was a drained wetland. All right, I've made it around the perimeter. The polygon looks good. This map shows the wetland that we have marked on the ground. It is going to be 3,309 square feet in size. That's a really good size for eastern Kentucky, where we have all these hills and very little level ground. I recommend taking a number of photographs of the wetland you design. These will really come in handy for reports and also when you're applying for funding to pay for the wetland project. I just use my smartphone to take these photographs, and I get up on higher ground and make sure I'm covering the entire area that we laid out. We have now marked the perimeter of a wetland that we'd like to build. It has less than a 2-foot change in elevation from upper to lower edge. Well, I'm Tom Biebighauser. This is Wetland Restoration and Training, and I invite you to share, subscribe, and to like this video. And stay tuned for more episodes on how you can design and build a wetland. Thank you.